Have you ever noticed that you've never actually seen a fig flower?
Think about it.
Peach blossoms, pear blossoms, rapeseed flowers. When spring arrives, they all put on their showy displays. But figs? Spring comes and goes. No flowers. Summer arrives. Still nothing. Then autumn shows up, and suddenly there are these purple-brown fruits hanging on the branches, as if the tree just skipped an entire step, as if flowering had nothing to do with it. That observation actually gets right to the heart of what makes figs so strange. Because here's the thing, figs do flower. They just don't do it where you'd expect. The flowers are inside the fruit. Cut a fresh fig open lengthwise, and you'll see all those dense, thread-like structures inside. That's the flower stalk. And those tiny little grains you see? Those aren't seeds. Those are the flowers themselves. Hundreds of tiny flowers, hidden inside a sealed, pouch-like structure, completely invisible to the outside world. Every bite of fig you've ever taken, that soft, sweet part? That's not fruit flesh. It's the flower base. And those little crunchy bits you chew? Those are the flowers and the future seeds. This is a completely inward way of flowering. The tree hides its reproductive life deep inside its own body. Among the hundreds of thousands of flowering plant species on Earth, this strategy is extraordinarily rare. And yet, the fig genus, the ficus genus, is one of the most species-rich plant groups in the world. But here's the problem. If your flowers are hidden inside a sealed fruit, how does pollen get in? Wind can't help. Bees can't help. You need a pollinator that can actually get inside. And evolution's answer? An insect less than 2 millimeters long. A fig wasp. This is one of the most precise, most brutal, and most moving symbiotic relationships in the natural world. Let me walk you through it. When a female fig starts developing, its tip opens a tiny pore. This opening is so small you can barely see it with the naked eye. A pregnant female fig wasp finds that pore and squeezes her way inside. Her body is perfectly matched to that passage, so perfectly, in fact, that as she pushes through, the scales lining the tunnel catch her wings and tear them off. The passage is so narrow that she usually can't turn back. But this isn't a tragedy. From an evolutionary perspective, it's a transaction. Once inside, the wasp lays her eggs in the ovules of the fig's female flowers. And here's the beautiful part. Her body is dusted with pollen she carried from the fig she emerged from. As she moves through the internal chamber, laying eggs, she accidentally, but reliably, pollinates the flowers. After she finishes, she typically dies inside the figure. Though, to be fair, exact details vary across different fig species and their partner wasps. And the fig? It's accomplished something remarkable. It got its flowers pollinated, and in exchange, it provided a nursery for the wasp's offspring. The eggs hatch into larvae inside the fruit. The larvae feed on some of the developing seeds, then pupate. When the new generation of wasps emerges, males and females mate inside the fruit. The males, who have massive jaws, chew a tunnel through the fig wall, and then they die. The females crawl out through that tunnel, brushing past the now mature flowers, picking up fresh pollen, and fly off to find another fig. Everything, birth, death, mating, the next generation taking flight, happens inside that sealed, hidden space. And in return, the fig gets its seeds spread. This arrangement has been running for tens of millions of years. Though again, the specifics differ between different fig and wasp pairings. So next time you eat a fig, you might wonder, was there a wasp in there? In figs that require pollination, the female wasp does the job, and her body typically breaks down during fruit development. You won't see it. And here's the relief. Not every fig you eat contains a dead wasp. Many cultivated varieties can produce fruit without pollination at all. Okay, let's come up for air from the biology and switch perspectives. Let's talk about how humans have seen figs. Figs may be among the earliest fruit trees humans ever domesticated. At a site in the Jordan Valley, archaeologists found fig remains dating back about 11,000 years. Researchers believe these were figs that could produce fruit without pollination, likely from cuttings deliberately planted by people. That's earlier than many cereal crop domestication dates, though direct comparisons depend on the site and dating methods. This probably isn't a coincidence. Many cultivated figs can be propagated simply by sticking a branch in the ground. No seeds required. That kind of easy, reliable reproduction would have made figs incredibly practical for early farming communities. And from there, figs show up everywhere in human civilization. Ancient Egyptians treated the fig as a tree of life. Tomb paintings show fig harvests, and they believed the fruit could accompany the dead into the afterlife. In the Bible, after Adam and Eve eat the forbidden fruit, they cover themselves with fig leaves, probably the most famous case of a plant being used to hide human shame. The Romans had a legend that the she-wolf who nursed Romulus and Remus did so beneath a fig tree, a tree they later called the sacred fig. And in Buddhist tradition, the Buddha attained enlightenment while sitting beneath the Bodhi tree, which is a species of ficus, the same genus as the fig. The same kind of tree appears in Egyptian tombs, in the Bible, in Rome's founding myth, in the central story of Buddhism. That's not coincidence. The fig tree is genuinely striking. It has a wide canopy, dense shade, sweet and abundant fruit. In the hot climates of the Mediterranean and the Middle East, a fig tree was a landmark, a refuge, a symbol you could return to again and again. So, what about nutrition? What's actually in a fig? Fresh figs are mostly water, around 80%. Of the remaining dry matter, the largest share is carbohydrates, mainly glucose and fructose. That's why they taste so sweet. But figs aren't just sugar. They also provide dietary fiber, including the soluble kind, though exact amounts vary by variety and whether the fig is fresh or dried. They contain some calcium, potassium, and magnesium as well. Some laboratory studies have shown that fig extracts have antioxidant activity, thanks to phenolic compounds and flavonoids. In certain test tube experiments, fig leaf extracts have demonstrated the ability to scavenge free radicals. But, and this is important, those are in vitro studies. What happens inside the human body is far more complex. Just because a fruit contains active compounds doesn't mean eating it will produce specific health effects. Traditional medicine has its own records of figs. In Chinese medicine, figs are described as clearing heat and moistening the intestines, used for sore throats and constipation. The Compendium of Materia Medica notes that figs can open the stomach and stop diarrhea. Ancient Persian and Greek medicine had similar uses. And interestingly, modern research on dietary fiber and gut motility does echo some of those traditional observations. That echo is a kind of conversation across centuries. So how do we actually eat figs? Fresh figs have a very short season. Ripe figs are incredibly delicate. Barely touch them and they bruise. They don't keep long after harvest, and overripe ones can develop a fermented smell, depending on the variety and storage. Eating fresh figs is a race against time. When you get good ones, just wash them and eat them as they are. That's the best way to experience their unique flavor. Cut one open, and you'll see the honey-colored or deep red threads inside, a restrained, rich sweetness that isn't cloying. Much more common are dried figs. The drying process concentrates both sugar and flavor, locking that brief season into a shelf-stable form. Dried figs can be eaten straight, chopped into yogurt or oatmeal, blended with nuts into energy balls, or used in savory dishes, especially in Middle Eastern and Mediterranean cooking. Braised with lamb, baked with cheese. Classic combinations. There's also a curious cultural note. In some Western countries, dried figs appear as a traditional winter food, showing up in fruit baskets and holiday desserts around Christmas. But in the Northern Hemisphere, figs naturally ripen in late summer and early autumn. So those Christmas figs come either from the other side of the planet or from months of careful drying. A single dried fig carries a global supply chain and an ancient human trick for preserving food across seasons. We're almost done. Let's return to where we started. A fig hangs quietly on a branch. Nothing seems to happen. No flowers open. No insects visit. All silent. But inside that fruit, an entire drama unfolded. A fig wasp squeezed in, laid her eggs, died. Her offspring hatched, mated, and flew away. A complete life cycle, with not a single grain of pollen wasted. That's what the fig teaches us. The most astonishing secrets are often hidden beneath the quietest exteriors. Next time you cut open a fig and see those dense threads and tiny grains, I hope you remember this story. You'll know that what you're looking at isn't just fruit and seeds. It's a hidden garden, tucked inside a closed chamber. A place where an entire family once lived, where a precise, delicate transaction took place, where an agreement made tens of millions of years ago is still being honored. And that bite you take? That's the taste of that agreement. Thank you.